When it comes to the mention of the Kenyatta family's wealth, it's a subject of discussion on every platform, and it's a subject that always brings up who has been behind the success of the Kenyatta family empire. The name of Mama Ngina Kenyatta always rings a bell unto the mind of many Kenyans. Today, allow me unto our segment of the drums of history to get to dig deep into the untold story of the Ngina Kenyatta as well. Because when you mention the Kenyatta family, you can't miss to mention the name of Mama Ngina Kenyatta. The vast wealth of the Kenyatta family was considered such a crucial factor in Kenyans' internal security that the CIA, America's spy agency, issued a special report on it the day Kenyan's founding father was buried in 1978. The report, which was made public 7 years ago, talked of thousands of acres of land held by Mzee Kenyatta and his wife Mama Ngina. High-powered draggers over gemstones mines, a colossal stake in the charcoal trade, the secret exports of ivory, and an unspoken fear that Kenyans would revolt and seize back land from the first family. Stampede Secret, the Economy Intelligence Weekly Review, dated August 31st, 1978, is part of nearly 800,000 declassified files that the CIA was forced to publish online just 10 days after the death of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. It gives an insight into the explosive mix of power and business in the post-independence Kenyan. Might explain why the Kenyatta family has always appeared to be indebted to President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, who took over on Mzee Kenyatta's death amid a wave of resentment against the country's ruling class. Now, the CIA in the report equates the Kenyatta family to royalty and expresses fear that it might be the target of wealth distribution following the change of government. Contrary to its analysis, however, Moi not only vowed to protect Kenyatta's legacy in the Nyayo philosophy following in Mzee's steps, but anointed as scion of the Kenyatta clan. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president, as his successor when he stepped down in the year 2002, after ruling Kenya for 24 years. Uhuru's first stab at the presidency was thwarted by the candidature of Moi's former vice president Mwai Kibaki, who rode to victory on a national coalition and a last-minute backing of Raila Odinga, leading Kibaki to become the president of Kenya until the year 2013. According to the CIA's assessment, in 1978, the Kenyatta family was resented, perhaps because of a public perception that their wealth had been acquired through dubious means. The CIA wrongly speculated that Moi and the then Attorney General Charles Jonjo were likely to capitalize on the widespread dislike of Mama Ngina and on public discontent over corruption to take over large shares of the family's holdings. Such a move would lead to conflict, it warned, whether attempted as a first step toward widespread income distribution or merely a shift of resources in favor of the new rulers. Such a move would almost certainly provoke a strong political response from the Kenyatta family, read the CIA report back then. That a strong political response is undefined, but part of the 13 million-page document shows America was worried that the ministers who had been loyal to Kenyatta were likely to overthrow Moi or ensure that he did not succeed Kenyatta after acting as president for 90 days, as the Constitution then prescribed. That did not happen. After being sworn in as acting president, Moi neutralized ministers considered closest to Kenyatta, such as Paul Ngei and Biu Koinange, and outmaneuvered his opponents with the support of Jonjo and the Laikipia politician Gigi Kariuki. defeatedly establishing his own rule. Now, the Kenyatta family was already rich, and the CIA was able to find what it describes as extensive holdings of farm plantations, hotels, casino, and insurance, shipping, and real estate companies as part of the wealth portfolio. Now, let's look at the vast farms. It reported Kenyatta himself owned only about a half dozen properties covering roughly 4,000 hectares of land, mainly farms in the Rift Valley and in the district of Kiambu where he was born. His wife Mama Ngina Kenyatta, however, owned at least 115,000 hectares, including a 13,000 hectare ranch in the Kiambu district, 2 tea plantations at Matu and Mangu, and 3 sisal farms near the Tanzania borders. She also has considerable holdings in the resort areas around Mombasa and is involved in coffee plantations and in the Kenyan ruby mines, Now, according to a publication that has been unable to establish the veracity of these assertions, which were cabled to Washington by the agency's Nairobi operatives, Mama Ngina Kenyatta, who is distinctively private and whose public appearances are rare, and Uhuru's half-sister Margaret, now then in their 80s and hailing, were depicted as very wealthy at the time. Margaret, and who was the second African mayor of Nairobi, was the daughter of Kenyatta's first wife, Grace Wahu Kenyatta. Remember, Margaret passed in the year 2017, a burial that was attended and publicized as a hero's burial by his half-brother Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, one of the CIA's memos says that Mama Ngina Kenyatta and Margaret Kenyatta were probably the country's 2 largest charcoal and ivory traders, particularly lucrative businesses. Although the export of these items is banned across because depletion of Kenyan's forests and wildlife threatened the underpinning of the Kenyan economy, both women had been able to obtain special licenses. For instance, shortly after a ban on ivory exports, except for tusks from elephants that died of natural causes or shot for control purposes, went into effect, the United Africa Corporation, whose chairman and chief stockholders was Margaret Kenyatta, received an exportation license for 1,250 baby elephant tusks. Now, the document accuses Kenyatta and his inner circle of having skimmed off part of the money that was to be used to resettle Kenyans on land bought from white settlers. They allegedly used the cash to accumulate land. When MPs considered setting a limit on how much a land person could hold, these moves were blocked. At independence in the year 1963, the British established a fund to help the Kenyan government purchase farms from European settlers in this area and redistribute them among land-hungry African farmers. Although hundreds of African farmers were resettled through this scheme, some of the funds allegedly were used by family members and Kenyatta's ministers to accumulate land to protect the holdings of its members and the family. The government blocked every parliamentary attempt to limit land ownership. I read the memo from the CIA. The family members and close associates controlled a large part of the land in the White Highlands, the homeland of Kenyatta's tribe, the Kikuyu. To explain how seriously the Americans took what they viewed as public resentment of the first family, the agency quoted parliamentary debates, newspaper report, and intellectuals who had all expressed displeasure with the regime just 15 years after independence. The Kenyatta family's holding on the economy is increasingly resented. Public criticism has been fanned by open parliamentary debate about scandals and high-level corruption, which has been widely publicized by the country's free press. Students and faculty at the University of Nairobi are particularly concerned about the uneven distribution of Kenyans' wealth and income. They and increasingly the man on the street are very critical of the family's involvement in the charcoal and ivory trade, which endangers vital national resources, the CIA said. In a 1979 diplomatic cable seen by the Standard, which is not part of the CIA cache, the US Ambassador Anthony Marshall has said the expectations of public raid on the Kenyattas had been thwarted. Now, when we speak about thwarted means it had been contained. Let's speak about it. Contrary to the expectations of many, the Kenyatta family and the close associates of the former president had not been attacked by the new government on the issue of the corrupt means through which they obtained much of their wealth. On the other hand, when we speak about the new government, we are speaking then about the government of President Moi, who had taken over from Kenyatta. On the other hand, we hear that Moi has let it be known that while he will not stop anyone from enjoying his ill-gotten gains, the game is over for the Kenyatta clique and no more corruption will be tolerated from them. The cable read, at the time of the president's death, there were rampant stories that Kenyatta's wife, Ngina Kenyatta, would seek to flee the country in order to save herself from the wrath of the new government or the populace at large. This did not happen, and Mama Ngina still enjoyed a respected position in Kenyan society. She divides the time between family farm at Getundu and a residence on the grounds of the State House, which has been set aside for our use, read the cable, perhaps referring to the Kenyatta family home adjacent to State House, Nairobi. Now, the CIA files also mentioned other members of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's family, his son by his first wife, Peter Muigai Kenyatta, who remember died 1 year after the death of his father. He held a seat in parliament and was part owner of the Innkeep, a trading company that handled, among other things, the Ford Motor concession in Kenya. Peter Kenyatta and his sister Margaret, the former mayor of Nairobi, also owned large tracts of land. The late president's cousin included the director of Londro in Kenya, the chairman of the company that built the Mombasa to Nairobi gas pipeline, and Kenyan's sole farm distributor, the file said. The Americans were partly upset with Kenyatta and Mama Ngina, whom they blamed for the deportation of an American citizen, John M. Saul, a mining geologist, and deported shortly after discovering rich ruby deposits at the coast. A June 19, 1975 cable by Ambassador Marshall notified the U.S. State Department of the deportation and blamed the reason for the expulsion on greedy Kenyans in high places. Mr. Saul, now, when we speak about this, when we speak about something like this, at first, at the time, the Americans were partly upset. Now, Mr. Saul had surrendered a 51% of his possession discovery to his African partners, read the top officials in the then Kenyatta government. But the state, through the then Minister of Natural Resources, William Odongo Mamu, insisted that there was no way he was going to hold 49% of the company. Omamo informed Saul that it had been discovered that two of four deposits to have been exploited by new corporation had been taken over by companies representing personal interest of Mama Ngina, President Kenyatta's wife, and Beth Mogo, Kenyatta's niece, on grounds that Saul's claims were not properly registered. Omamo, moreover, told Saul that the original group of Kenyan shareholders, now dissatisfied with their shares of shrunken assets of the corporation, and had demanded the Saul's share be decreased from 49% to 20% to give them larger proportions. Read the cable now. Now continuing, you will discover that the mastermind behind the Kenyatta wealth accumulation and even the torturing, let me say, taking over the lands, the companies, the building of an empire through malicious means was none other than Mama Ngina Kenyatta. Remember, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was hailing when these things were happening. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta had no intellectual capacity to these means. But Mama Ngina Kenyatta realized, you know what? Mzee is going. Mzee is getting old. I have family. I have kids that deserve to be taken care of. Kids that deserve to hold their own legacy. So Mama Ngina Kenyatta formulated a very structured business plan. And let me say, a very structured move that she even got the vice president then, Daniel Moi, to support her and to be on her side. She pocketed Moi. After pocketing Moi, she was sure even if Kenyatta was to pass, my interest and the interest of my family will be protected. And that's how the cards of the Kenyatta family were played. Until now, the Kenyatta family remains untouched. Not until the recent government of President William Ruto that has tried every means possible to depopularize the Kenyatta family in the current regime. For now, that's what we had for you. Make sure you subscribe to FM Show KE. Now, I remind you, this is FM Show KE, and the show on air right now is none other than the drums of history. Here, we give you nothing but the best history can offer. I tell you, don't relent from subscribing. See you in the next one. This was how the Kenyatta family wealth was accumulated according to the publications by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, the spy web of